Some families miss out on their fathers because they decide to be physically absent, choosing work over spending time with their loved ones. Other parents are emotionally absent, not letting their children see their emotions, hiding who they really are, not crying, hugging or kissing their children. With my father Fred, this was never the case. Dad was always there, in both body and spirit, teaching me by his living example what it is to be a father and a husband, teaching me it is possible for a man to show tenderness, to be unafraid of open affection with both his children and grandchildren, to be a loving husband. I recognise that I'm still learning. The death of my father has reinforced the importance of following his example within my own family. Even though I have lost a father, his teaching will continue. You cannot remember Dad without also speaking of my mother Angela, because in life they were one. Together they demonstrated true love. They taught me what a marriage should be. Dad loved us all. His last words, written on the night of Friday the 30th of December, were, "I am." I honestly believe he had been trying to write, "I am going to be okay," or "I am so glad you are here." The doctors and nurses at St. Vincent's assured us he was not in pain, but we could perceive that the greatest pain for him was not his own, but rather the pain he saw in us. My mother and father loved the cinema. They would walk together to the Nova in Carlton, or into the city to watch films together. Mum, I know you never saw the movie Shall We Dance? It's a terrible movie, with Richard Gere and Jennifer Lopez. And you hate Richard Gere because his eyes are too small. But Dad would have liked to see Jennifer Lopez. There was one scene, though, that is poignant. These words, I think, eloquently capture the essence of Mum and Dad's life together. We need a witness to our lives. There's 1 billion people on the planet. What does any one life really mean? But in a marriage, you're promising to care about everything. The good things, the bad, the terrible things, the mundane things. All of it. All of the time, every day. You're saying, your life will not go unnoticed because I will notice it. Your life will not go unwitnessed because I will be your witness. There. You don't need to see the movie now, as I've just quoted you the best bit. Dad, all of us here will be your witness. My father died last Wednesday morning. In the days after he had the stroke, we experienced Melbourne's gloriously sunny days and sweltering heat. We felt that heat emanating from the bluestone footpaths at night when we left his side to try and gather strength for the days ahead. We needed that strength, as our hopes changed with the days. Our initial hope of Dad getting better, greeting us with a crooked smile when he recognized us at the hospital emergency ward. My beautiful wife Sandra holding the piece of paper so he could write those last words, and Dad squeezing our hands as we spoke to him. Our ongoing hope for him to cling to life when we realized the harsh reality that there was no chance of recovery, so that my sister Vega, who was flying from halfway around the world, would be able to hold his hand. The beautiful sketch you see in the booklet is hers, so accurately capturing that fleeting and intangible feeling of sorrow. Then our final hope. In those hours and days when we live so inexplicably close to death, to fulfill his wish for his organs to be donated, Dad wanted to provide the gift of life to others. We now know that that wish could not be wholly achieved, but his corneas will give sight to two strangers. Even in death, a small physical part of Dad is still in this world. I've been assured by the transplant doctor that even though Dad had terrible eyesight, this will have no effect on the vision of the recipients. Early on that Wednesday morning, after those gloriously sunny days, Dad gently breathed his last. As dawn broke a few hours later, the heavens opened up and rained as if weeping with us, announcing to the world Fred's death and washing away the detritus to reveal the essence of our love for Dad. In delivering this eulogy, I want to paint a picture of the life I knew as his son and friend. Federico Eduardo Castro was born in Hong Kong on the 11th of August 1941. He lived to be 70 years old. He was the youngest of 5 children and went to school at St. Joseph's College, very close to the base of the Peak Tram on Hong Kong Island. Dad met the love of his life, my mother, and married her. My mother tells me that when she was going out with her previous boyfriend, Dad would wait on the corner till he left, and she would gladly meet with him, because he was not, in her words, boring. Dad, how do we describe your life here today? Most recently, when preparing this eulogy, I was reminded by Sandra of Dad's concern about his forgetfulness, or the fact that my mother always had to remind him of things. But he never ever forgot to give love. The first thing he would say to Sandra and my children when visiting us was always, "Where is my hug?" I also remember seeing the joy on his face when he described Skyping Vega and Mark and his youngest grandchild, little Fred, telling us what little Fred was doing and about his quirky sayings. Dad loved finding excuses to do his favourite things. I remember being made to go to church when I was younger, probably 10 years old. He got so much joy from that, but for me it was terrifying. Not because of the church or the religion, but because I had guitar lessons immediately afterwards, and I never practiced. But the point is, during my lesson, Dad would be outside in the car, under the shade of a tree, listening to The Goon Show with Spike Milligan on the radio. He timed it perfectly, rushing me inside, even if we were early, to make me wait by myself in terror, so he could get back to the car. The Goon Show went on for longer than my lesson, so our ritual was to continue listening in the car on the drive home, and then sit in the car, listening till the show finished, much to my mum's dismay. Dad loved playing games. I asked my younger son Indy, "What are you going to miss most about Granddad?" And he said, "Playing games with him. Chess, and, you know, the one where you jump pieces over one another." Indy meant checkers. My Uncle Charlie and Auntie Fran over from LA tell us about the many games of Mexican Train they played during Mum and Dad's visit to them last year. We've come to love this game as well, and have since had many hours of joy playing. But in playing these games, for such a kind and gentle man, Dad had a competitive streak. I don't think I ever beat him at chess. Only my son Marley has, and I remember Dad wasn't that happy about it. On the ping-pong table, we had some epic battles. Dad not conceding, even when there was some clear violation of the rules. I didn't know better until I was older. I can recognize this competitive streak now in my daughter, Kia, as she too hates to lose. The world stopped for his favourite TV show, Letters and Numbers on the ABC. The term used is appointment TV, which means whatever he was doing, wherever he was, Dad had to sit down and watch. More often than not, if he was at our house, he'd make myself and my children watch with him. Mum and Dad loved travelling overseas a lot. In fact, I remember Mum telling me how she organised their superannuation for this very reason, with the help of our dear family friend Simon Stewart, who was also their financial advisor. Every year Mum and Dad went back to Hong Kong and the UK. They got so much joy from seeing their many family and friends, usually after Mum had compiled a minute-by-minute itinerary. I wanted to know more of Dad's life with his brothers and sisters. Dolly, who is here with us today, Joy in Las Vegas, Sonny and Laddie both in Los Angeles, and his best friends from his childhood, Michael Thurwell, Alan Wu, Baldwin Eng, and Tony Remedios, all of whom I know would love to be here, but are listening and watching from overseas. Dad is looking down on all of us. What has emerged as stories, mementos, qualities that are deepening my memories of him? I learned that he and his friends formed a softball team in Hong Kong called the Wolves, and that Dad was the best one-handed pitcher ever. Michael had recalled memories of swimming at Sheko and hiking in the pouring rain to Stanley. I learned Dad's nickname, Bonnie, was because he was such a bonny baby and adored by his older brothers and sisters. Dolly said she would carry him on her back when she was 10 and he was 1. I could speak all day, but it wouldn't do Dad's life justice. Instead, I have made a pledge that I will continue being a witness to Dad's life by reinforcing his bonds of friendship as well as relationships with his brothers and sisters, relaying stories from his past that will make you laugh and cry, and by passing on lessons to my children and future grandchildren. You can find the inception for these stories in the printed emails that will be pinned up back at my house, and I invite you to take a moment to read them. I am so happy that others have had a chance to share these qualities that I loved and respected in him and be a witness to his life. I loved my dad, and in getting to know his childhood friends better, I know his memory will live on, and a part of his soul will reside with you forever. Yes, we'll shed tears for Fred, but the best thing we can do is thank God for a man who has made all our lives better, happier. The gift of life isn't just a short-term thing that we're meant to only enjoy. In Dad's case, it lasted for 70 years and was then cruelly taken away from all of us. Life is too big for that. We'll enjoy that gift with him forever. Please forgive me as I recite these following words from the Russian writer Andrei Mikhin. Russians are known for their capacity for tragedy and suffering, but this passage also has a tiny ripple of hope. You know I shall have to go soon, but before leaving, I shall have enough time to tell you what is essential. The winter's day I can see, and which one part of me is beginning to inhabit. A muted day, traversed by slowly eddying flakes. A time will come when everything is like that moment in winter. You will appear amid the snowbound sleep of the trees, on the shore of the frozen lake, and you will begin to walk on the still fragile ice. Every step you take will be deep pain and joy for me. You will walk towards me, letting me recognize you at every step. In the hollow of your hand, a fistful of berries, the very last of them, found beneath the snow, bitter and frozen. The icy treads of the wooden stairs will give off a crunching sound that I have not heard for an eternity. In the house I shall remove the clock, as we shall no longer have any need of its hours. I will recognize you, Dad, wherever you are, in Mum, in Vega, in my children, and in all those you have touched. We spent last Thursday night celebrating my cousin Leonie's birthday. We are fortunate that, as a family, we often come together with good food, wine and conversation. My dad would have loved this occasion, as he did when we celebrated his 70th birthday back in August, surrounded by friends and family just like today. We shall continue with these celebrations, knowing that there will always be a place set aside at the table for Dad. At times like these, so many families are worried about all the things left unsaid, probably because they were not brave enough to say them, or they ran out of time. We were lucky in that we always said to each other what needed to be said. There are no regrets, thanks to Dad's openness, his willingness, his understanding, and his love. Mum, I know that the love of your life has left us, and there will be hard times ahead. But Dad, please know that, though we can never replace you, we will look after Mum, as will all of our family and friends. Please continue to keep us in your thoughts over the next few days, weeks, months and years, as we draw strength from the knowledge that his memory is well and truly alive. And while we know that the grief and hurting will never abate, life will eventually have meaning again, and this loss will form part of who we are. I hope I have painted a portrait of my dad in your mind. I'm sorry as I only managed to use a limited palette from his rich and vivid life. Dad, I know you are walking beside us today, and for the rest of our lives. Until we meet again, I will always love you. David.